Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10 and support the channel at the same time. Hey there, it's John from Heroes and Legends, and today is day 2 of the official Unstable previews. We have a lot of cards to look at, so I want to get into this kind of quick. So real fast, just a really quick reminder, if you're looking for a way to support what we do here on the channel, it's always really appreciated, but check out the description below. You'll find a link to our Patreon page. You'll find a link to some products on Amazon. If you make any purchases via those links, we'll get a small percentage. And finally, Flipside Gaming, of course, still giving a promo code to our viewers. You can save some cash. They're doing pre-orders right now for Unstable, as well as many, many other things. So check them out. Hopefully save yourself some money. With that being said, let's get into it. A lot of awesome cards to look at. We're going to start off with a card we saw yesterday, but we got a promo version to look at today, and it's Earl of Squirrel. I talked about this in length yesterday. This is the card with Squirrel Link, and I loved the art on the regular version. I love the art on this version too. Both are incredible. This one's a promo card that's going to be given out at LGS's during the launch weekend. They did not clarify, though, how many stores are getting, what the criteria is for stores to give them out, or can stores just decide on their own. So it's not quite as structured as a normal launch weekend promo. So I guess we'll kind of have to wait and see, or maybe more information will be coming soon on that, but I'll let you know if I hear anything. Now let's move on to the new cards for the day. Do It Yourself Seraph, 2 white and 4, artifact creature, cyborg, angel. This is a mythic 4/4 flying. Whenever this attacks, you may search your library for an artifact card, exile it, then shuffle your library. Do It Yourself Seraph has the text box of each card exiled with Do It Yourself Seraph in addition to its own. Okay, so if you saw yesterday's video, you kind of know we're going to look at each card, analyze them a little bit, but this is different than a normal set. I mean, these cards aren't typically really meant to interact with Black Border cards, so we don't have to go too deep there. We're really going to talk about just the fun factor of these cards, the flavor, some of the art, of course, and just some of the amazing things they're doing here. And we'll also talk about how they relate to each other, obviously, for Draft and Sealed. Many of us will be playing this set in the limited environments, and I'm excited to do so very soon myself. Set seems really fun. So with that being said now, this card feels like it could be pretty good. It is a Mythic Rare. You're getting a lot here for 6 mana. It's a 4/4 flyer. And if you have good artifacts, and there does seem to be an overarching artifact theme involved in the set, then this is going to be very playable for you. One thing to note, though, this does say search your library for an artifact card, not your contraption deck, right? So you can't go in and take a contraption. It has to be a card from your library, which does narrow this card's abilities down a little bit, at least from what we've seen so far. But I'm looking forward to see what other artifacts are out there that it can interact with for sure. And, I mean, the card, too, was awesome, flavorful. I really like the art as well. Alright, this next one actually came to us in 2 forms. We got a regular version and a Judge's promo, right? So, it's Rules Lawyer. Both pieces of art look amazing. 2 white and 3, artifact creature, cyborg advisor. It's a 1/1. This thing's a rare. State-based actions don't apply to you or other permanents you control. And then they went ahead and gave you probably the longest reminder text you could ever imagine. So if you're curious about how state-based effects could impact you or the game you're playing, I'll quickly read this. You don't lose the game due to having 0 or less life or drawing from an empty library. Your creatures aren't destroyed due to damage or death touch and aren't put into a graveyard due to having 0 or less toughness. Your planeswalkers aren't put into a graveyard if they have 0 loyalty. You don't put a legendary permanent into a graveyard if you control 2 with the same name. Counters aren't removed from your permanents due to game rules. Permanents you control attached or combined illegally remain on the battlefield for complete rules and regulations. See Rule 704. Okay. So basically all the things the state-based rules check, like that's illegal, you can't do it. Or your creature has 0 toughness, it's got to go to the graveyard, all that type of stuff, just isn't happening if Rules Lawyer's in play. Now, it's very fragile as a 1/1, and I think that's probably on purpose because they don't want this to live too long, I would imagine. You're paying 5 mana for it, but wow, imagine the wacky hijinks that could occur if this is on the battlefield for you, right? So this is just crazy, and this is the perfect kind of outside-the-box thinking you want to see from this set. The card's super confusing. It's going to cause so many questions and judge calls, right? That type of thing during the launch weekend, I'm sure. But that's the fun of this. It's not about the practicality of the card as much as it's about the card just being fun. And this is awesome. And I think that it's really cool that they made a judge's promo of this too. That's super sweet. All right, here we go. Crow Storm. And yes, the meme is real. It's in the set. And you even have a token that's a Stormcrow token to go along with it. So this costs a blue and 2. It's a sorcery, uncommon. Create a 1/2 blue bird creature token with flying named Stormcrow. This has Storm. Stormcrow counters on your right side, and if you notice the crow's being hit with lightning. This is amazing. So yes, this has been a running joke, obviously, for many, many years in Magic, Stormcrow being the card that it is, and they ran with it here, and it's super awesome. Great flavor text, too. Just overall, I'm just really happy to see this. This is going to be a lot of people's probably favorite card of the set. Insight. This costs 2 blue and X sorcery rare, assemble X contraptions. Pretty simple. Probably the most quirky thing about the card is the name. And if you have some good contraptions, I could see this being a great card for you. I was trying to think too, like how that's going to work out as far as draft and sealed, like how many contraptions you're going to have on average. Now draft, it could be pretty random. If you happen to draft a lot, you could have a ton of them. If you don't draft a lot, you could have not that many. Sealed, I guess you'd get 2 per pack, so 12 in your contraption deck. That's pretty significant. So a card like this could be very playable in sealed, and depending on your draft build, probably a lot of times there too. Just seems like a good way to dump your mana into resources. Wall of Fortune. So it's an unset. You know, there's going to be some dice rolling. We already saw some. We're going to see some more today. There's also some Dice Matters kind of cards. Here's one of them. We'll see a few more in a few moments. But this one costs a blue and 1. It's a 0/4 artifact creature wall. This is a common defender. You may tap an untapped wall you control to have any player reroll a die that player rolled. So a way to kind of stack the deck for these dice roll cards. If you have dice roll cards, it allows you to manipulate the action a little bit. If your opponent has them, then maybe you sideboard it in to defend yourself against that ability a little bit. So I think it's pretty cool. Great idea, and we're going to see more cards that are going to interact with the dice in just a few moments. Capital Offense. 2 black and 2, instant common. Target creature gets -X/-X until end of turn, where X is the number of times a capital letter appears in its rules text. Ignore reminder text and flavor text. Okay, so what's really cool about this card, if you didn't notice, it has no capital letters in it, so that's pretty awesome. Great flavor. And I also like the flavor text here, part basket case, all lowercase. So anyway, the card itself, though, is like really solid removal again. We saw a pretty solid piece of common removal in black yesterday, which was a little more expensive. This one, though, 2 black and 2, it's going to take care of a lot of threats, especially some of these small creatures, like these low toughness creatures that have these crazy abilities. Feels like that seems to be a theme here a little bit. So a card like this will definitely take care of those situations, but can also sometimes take care of something bigger, like even the do-it-yourself Seraph we saw a little bit ago had a ton of capital letters in it, right? So I like this idea because it's still removal. It's like still your classic -X/-X black removal for 2 black and 2, but it's got a fun spin on it. It's very usable in gameplay, but it's also a uncard. It definitely feels like an uncard, so I think that's pretty awesome. Snickering Squirrel. Alright, this is another dice manipulation card. It costs 1 black to cast 1/1 Squirrel Advisor common. You may tap this to increase the result of a die any player rolled by 1. So again, another way to manipulate your rolls or even opponent's rolls. We will see. We saw one yesterday. There's another one at least today where you're going to roll 2 dice and then the difference between the 2 numbers will matter. So this plays into not only what you're rolling, but also potentially what your opponent might be rolling with abilities like that. So again, kind of makes sense. Again, if you have cards that are using a lot of dice rolls and it feels like there's a number of those cards in this set, or if your opponent's using them, it could be good for you. Alright, here's an awesome one. Spike Tournament Grinder. This is rounding out the cycle, the Timmy Johnny Spike cycle that we saw the other 2 cards, of course, in previous unsets. This time around, we get Spike 2 black Phyrexian mana and 2 legendary creature, human gamer. This one's a rare 1/1. And of course, if you're not familiar with Phyrexian mana, in this case, because it's black, you can pay either black or 2 life. And then the ability is 4 black Phyrexian mana. Choose a card you own from outside the game that has been banned or restricted in a constructed format. Reveal that card and put it into your hand. Okay, so just kind of take that in for a second because there's a lot of great cards you can choose from. Obviously, you can go high-end here and just think of crazy stuff like Black Lotus or something like that, sure. But there are a lot of amazing cards that have been banned in various formats, right? So you probably think of a lot of crazy things to do here. Now, when it comes to casting this, because you can pay the life, you can actually cast this pretty quickly. Maybe turn 2, you could put this down now. You could play it and activate it on turn 2. It's going to cost you a lot of life. There's going to be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 life, assuming you don't have any black mana to pay into it. So, okay, maybe it might even be worth it. Who knows? If you get a powerful enough card and you don't think your opponent can deal with it. So, I don't know. Obviously, that's probably a very dangerous way to play this card. But again, who cares? Because it's all about just the fun factor of this set. It's all about having a good time and just doing quirky things. This card can do some really quirky things, and I love it. I love the Phyrexian mana. I love how spiky the card feels, and everything else about it, like the flavor text. Just wait, I have a response. The art's amazing too. I love the Nope shirt with the blue mana symbol on it. So incredible card. I was expecting to see Spike, and here's the card, but I don't know if I was quite expecting this. Really cool card. Squirrel Powered Scheme. Okay, another card that does manipulate dice a little bit. This is a black and 2 enchantment uncommon. Increase the result of each die roll by 2. And this is reciprocal, so do pay close attention to that. It's not just you, but this is also your opponent's die rolls. Now, especially when you're rolling 2 die and getting the difference, this won't matter. But there are other times, I'm sure, where this certainly will matter. So, very interesting card, and I gotta wonder if this is something you want to play or maybe board in later once you know what your opponent's running or not running. Here's another really sweet one. Summon the Pack. Black and 7 Sorcery. Mythic Rare. Open a sealed magic booster pack, reveal the cards, and put all creature cards revealed this way onto the battlefield under your control. They're zombies in addition to their other types. Okay, so for 8 mana, I mean, yeah, it's a little expensive, but if you get there and open a pack of anything, you're going to get a bunch of creatures. What would you say would be the average amount of creatures in a booster pack? Like maybe 8 or something like that? I feel like you're probably winning the game at that point, and yeah, this is a fantastic card with an 8 mana payout. And if you can find a pack of Legions, I would suggest that one if you can get there. But regardless, no matter what pack it is, you're going to find value here. And ultimately, I mean, it comes down to the fun factor again. Like, this card is super fun. Cards where you get to bring in a booster pack from outside of Magic, I mean, that's awesome. So, fantastic card, and it's just going to be a lot of fun to mess around with. Party Crasher. This is a red and 4, Goblin Berserker, uncommon 3/3 with haste. You can attack with Party Crasher once each combat during each opponent's turn. Okay, that's kind of an interesting ability there. The only thing that's a little bit awkward is it doesn't have a way to untap itself. So you either have to find a way to untap itself to really exploit this card and that ability. I mean, you could always just choose not to attack with it on your turn and then attack on the opponent's turn for some reason. Or maybe if you're in a multiplayer game, it might make more sense to hold it back as a blocker through your next opponent's turn and then attack someone else later on or something like that. But without a way to untap it, the card doesn't seem to reach its full potential. Feels like it would have been fun if it said the card also untaps on your opponent's untap steps. That would have been pretty cool. But the way it stands now, it has to have some sort of synergy, especially if you're in a 1v1 game. And we haven't really seen cards yet that interact with it all that well, but there's a long way to go. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. Now, again, I'm reading way too much into this. It's just a fun card, and it might be kind of fun to attack on someone else's attack step, really, I think is what this is all about. Orchid Double, 2 red and 2 sorcery, common, assemble 2 contraptions, another very simple card, and again, it's going to be really good if you have some good contraptions to back it up. Ineffable Blessing, a green and 1, enchantment, rare. As this enters the battlefield, choose flavorful or bland. If you choose flavorful, whenever a creature card with flavor text enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. If you chose bland, whenever a creature without flavor text enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. So, ultimately, I love the idea here, the flavor, bland. Great play on some of these Magic cards that are similar to this that we've seen in the past, where you pick like a keyword and then have an ability attached to it. So, I really like the design here, and the power level feels good. It only costs 2 for this enchantment. And depending on what you have more of in your deck or maybe in your hand at that given time, you know you're probably going to be getting some card draw out of it. Even if your deck's like 50-50 flavor text and not flavor text, even if it was every other creature you play, you get to draw a card and replace it. That's super sweet for 2 mana, so it feels like it has a pretty high power level. Selphie Preservation. Okay, first off, I do want to point out, this card was revealed from Wizards of the Coast on Instagram, so there you go. It costs 1 green and 1, it's a sorcery, common. Search your library for a basic land card and reveal it. If there's a tree in its art, put it onto the battlefield tapped. Otherwise, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Be sure to get the tree in the picture. Okay, so kind of a cool maybe ramp card, or at least color fixing card. Sorcery speed. It's just a fun take on something we've seen a lot of times in Magic. And I did go ahead and check Is it basic lands? So your islands and your mountains, they don't have trees on them. As for the John Avon lands, the other 3, plains, swamp, and forest, do. So if you're playing in limited, it might be worth knowing that. But aside from that, just pretty cool idea, I think. Another good twist on something we're very familiar with. Slaying Mantis. 2 green and 5. It's an insect warrior. Uncommon. 6/6. Has an ability called Just a Second. As long as this spell is on the stack, players can't move cards on the battlefield. Slaying Mantis enters the battlefield by being thrown from a distance of at least 3 feet. When Slaying Mantis enters the battlefield, it fights each creature an opponent controls that it touched as it entered. Okay, so it's a dexterity card. That's pretty interesting. At least it doesn't hit your stuff. I could imagine them saying just any creature, and if you miss and hit your own thing, that'd be awkward. So it can only hit your opponent's stuff if you're able to do it. It's a 6/6, and if it survives the exchange, then you got a 6/6 on your hands too, so it feels pretty good. And I mean, look at that art. How can you not play this card if you get it right? I'm just trying to think like at events, like at your LGS, if you do like launch weekend or something, 3 feet away is pretty far. It depends on the LGS, I guess, and depending on where you're seated. But like if you're in the middle of like a typical LGS table with tables behind you, that could be tough to pull off. I'm going to look forward to see how people figure that out. But anyway, sounds cool. And again, dexterity cards are something they've obviously shied away from for a very long time. So an Unset is a perfect place to get to mess around with that mechanic again. Steam Flagger Service Rep. This costs a green and 2 Goblin Rigger. This is an uncommon 1/1. When another goblin enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1. If you do, this will assemble a contraption for you. So yeah, another way to kind of work through those contraptions, and obviously this is going to play well with the whole goblin/contraption theme that we have going on here. Clock of Doom. Okay, this costs 4. Artifact, uncommon, pay 4, and tap. Move the crank counter to your contraption deck's next sprocket and crank any number of that sprocket's contraptions. So for 4 mana and tapping this, you're basically getting 2 sprockets to activate in 1 turn. If you have enough contraptions to back that up, they could be very, very good. Or even if you have stuff on just one of your sprockets, getting to it faster is still pretty good too, I would imagine, depending on what you have. So yeah, ultimately, really good card. Again, you have to back it up a little bit with some good contraptions, but I feel like this could be a really strong card for you. The Grand Calcutron. Alright, this costs a white and blue. Legendary artifact. This one's a mythic. When this enters the battlefield, each player's hand becomes a program, which means it's an ordered row of revealed cards. Players can only play the first card of their program. If a card would be put into a player's hand from anywhere, that player reveals it and places it anywhere within his or her program instead. At the beginning of each player's end step, if that player's program has fewer than 5 cards, he or she draws cards equal to the difference. So here's what's interesting about this. First off, it's pretty cheap to cast, but once it's in play, you restrict yourself and your opponent a little bit by choosing the order of your cards. Then on top of that, you are pretty much guaranteed to always have at least 5 cards. So you always have this ability to kind of sculpt the next few cards you're going to be playing. So it's really interesting. Now, for me to consider that I'm going to have an advantage over my opponent for playing this, I don't really know what that looks like as far as my deck goes. Now, maybe I haven't seen enough cards from the set yet. That's very likely. I'm trying to think, like, why would I play this necessarily where I feel like I have an advantage over my opponent, or why wouldn't it just be kind of reciprocal? So if I'm thinking that way, though, I think I'm missing the point. Again, the point is this is just fun and silly and wacky and has a unique theme to it. And I'm glad it's here for that reason, and it's going to make for a lot of fun gameplay. Also, too, if you're not familiar with the Twitter account, Robo Rosewater, this is where the card was premiered today. And basically what that account does is they put out a random Magic card every day, like just completely random words from Magic cards. And a lot of times they're just gibberish. Other times they actually sound kind of cool. So they got the ability to premiere this card, which is really awesome considering the idea behind this card is a randomizer, like a program. So I don't know if this was actually based on what they do or if it just kind of tied in really well. But regardless, it was really cool that they got the preview card here. All right, let's look at a few contraptions. We have Boon Flinger. This one's a common contraption. Whenever you crank Boon Flinger, roll 2 6-sided dice. This will deal damage to target player equal to the difference between those results. So here's another example of rolling 2 dice and doing something based on the difference. And this time you can only hit player, but that's okay because this one's a common. It feels like it has a decent power level considering it is a common contraption. Division Table, another common one. Whenever you crank Division Table, target player loses 2 life. So again, only hits player, but for common, and the fact that this will be something that perhaps can activate a number of times over the course of the game, feels pretty good. Dual Doom Suits. Okay, this one's a rare. Whenever you crank Dual Doom Suits, each time a source you control would deal damage this turn, it deals double that damage instead. Alright, so they are not playing around with this one. This is very good. Now, of course, makes sense. This one's a rare as opposed to the commons we just saw. But getting the ability to do double damage, even if it's just 1 turn out of every 3, that feels pretty significant to me, right? That could be really, really big. And just goes to show you just how powerful some of these contraptions can be, especially if you line them up right with your sprockets. I feel like this is going to be a really fun mechanic and skill testing mechanic as well, because I do think there's a pretty nice power level behind these cards, considering once you get them on the battlefield, you're not paying any more for these abilities. You're paying time, maybe. You have to wait till it gets back to the sprocket, but you're not paying your other resources like your mana. So, much like maybe a Planeswalker, for example, you're getting this ability without paying mana. It can be a powerful thing, as you know. So yeah, I do think this is actually a super sweet card. I love contraptions, just generally. Can't wait to play with them. Alright, that being said, those are the cards for today. Very exciting stuff, actually. I'm super psyched about this set. Can't wait to play with it. I feel like, I said this yesterday, but I feel like it's a little bit like Conspiracy, but a little quirkier and just a little more tongue-in-cheek and fun. And it just looks kind of awesome. We did see a lot of offbeat cards today that do some weird things, and I'm looking forward to them. So tomorrow, we're going to be back again with another preview video. We're going to compile everything that comes out over the next 24 hours when it comes to Unstable. And also, too, tonight, I'm still doing our Iconic Masters review series. We're going to hit green tonight, and then we'll wrap that series up tomorrow evening. But also, in addition to that, we're going to keep plugging along with these Unstable preview cards through next Wednesday, it sounds like, for the preview week. So until next time, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. Have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.